What's up, everybody? David Lee, aka D Lee 43, here with another episode of the Hawks Film Room podcast. Tonight we've got a two-parter. All right, first off, we're going to take a quick but concise and informative view at the ass whooping that Orlando put on the Hawks after the third quarter. So we'll look at some of the key takeaways from that game, what's that going to translate over to Miami, and then in the later half of the show, a very informative breakdown with my guy Coach Lou, who extensively covers the Miami Heat. He gave us really good pointers on like how to defend Tyler Herro, the guys to sag off of, different coverages to throw at different guys. So definitely looking forward to you guys enjoying that one. I think it's a really great part of the conversation. But we're going to start with a Magic loss, okay? That fourth quarter was hilarious. The Hawks did an awesome job against Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, okay? Coming into this game, Franz and Paolo had combined to average 60-plus points against our Atlanta Hawks, okay? Both of them on above league average true shooting percentage. We're talking about 28 points per game for Franz, 33.3 for Paolo. In that game on Tuesday, Franz and Paolo combined for 30 points on 28 shot attempts. And they still lost by 25, okay? Now, how did that happen, you might ask? Well, if you were there for us, watching that game in its entirety, Cole Anthony and Anthony Black combined for the second most points in a game this season, 42 points on a combined 81.5 true shooting percentage. So they did their job against the Stars. They made it tough, but Orlando's other guys did what they haven't done consistently all season, which is make good shots, make open shots, capitalize off the advantages that their guys are creating for them, okay? This is the worst three-point shooting team in the NBA. They shot the ball way better than the Hawks did. The Hawks had a season-low 4 3-pointer attempts, 4 3-pointers made, and you simply cannot shoot that poorly against a team that was dominating them in all other facets of the game. It felt like there was not a single loose ball that Orlando did not get. For the game, the Hawks ended up getting out-rebounded by 12. They gave up 12 offensive rebounds. They got 9, but the defensive glass is really where they weren't able to secure, especially in that first half. They didn't turn the ball over, which is pretty much the only thing they did well. They were able to, they were fouling a lot, at least in the first half, but they were able to sort of even that out. Their bench, which has been strong all season, was really, really weak. You essentially had Karis LeVert, we say he doesn't come off the bench, but you got Karis LeVert, Terrence Mann, Vit Krejci, George Niang were all pretty rough. Niang had the best offensive game, but Karis was 3 for 11. Terrence Mann was 0 for 5. And these are guys that they rely on, for reliable production. And you combine that with the fact that Zachary Regis was 2 for 10, 1 for 5 on twos. Dyson wasn't super aggressive offensively. He took just 8 shot attempts. You can understand why you'd have 21 shot attempts from Trae Young, who did what he could, especially in that third quarter. I think he did a really good job trying to pull the Hawks back into it. They were down 22 in the second quarter, right? So the fact that they even got it to 3 at any point in the game is a testament to these guys wanting to fight. When we look at the film, I'll point out exactly when they lost the game, though. So first quarter, Atlanta was destroying them, ended up 17-32. Atlanta progressively fought back. The second quarter outscored them by 130-29. They were down, I think, 15 or something like that. And then, or 14, they were down 14. And then third quarter, their best defensive performance of the quarter. Also, Orlando is really prone to scoring droughts. I think they went 4 or 5 minutes without a bucket, scored just 18 points in the quarter. But the Hawks offense wasn't like otherworldly. They had cut it relatively low by the end of the third, at some point the third to 3. But they finished with just 26 points in the third quarter. And then they started the fourth quarter with my favorite combination of players, and that is Don Barlow and Georges Niang, okay? That is one of the worst combinations that the Hawks can put on the floor at any point in the game. And especially against a team like Orlando, you simply cannot play Don Barlow and Georges Niang together, especially when you had momentum going into the fourth quarter. For some context, both Onyeka Okongwu and Mohamed Gay had 3 fouls. It doesn't matter. Like, that is a losing combination to put on the floor. In the 1 minute and 30 seconds that Don Barlow and Niang shared the floor to begin their fourth quarter, a crucial stretch in the game where the Hawks were down 6, it was an 8-2 run for Orlando. 8-2. We'll take a look at some of those clips. Their best lineup featuring Niang has come with Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, Zachary Regis, Niang, Onyeka Okongwu. That lineup is a plus 11.7. It's the third best point differential they have for any lineup that's played at least 100 possessions together this season. And that offense is above league average at 123 points per possession, and they're more manageable defensively. They're just slightly above league average at 111.3. So ideally, you play Niang with Okongwu. Of course, with the way the front court looks right now, it's tough to do that. You don't have a reliable backup center, right? So I wanted them to go to Mohamed Gay at center. They did it for a decent amount of time. Mohamed Gay finished this game as the only player with a positive plus minus. He was +2. Shout out Dyson for being a neutral +0, even though he had some struggles shooting the ball and being offensive. But he also had 12 rebounds. He had 7 assists. Without further ado, let's jump into the film before we talk about the Heat in the second half of the show. So the first thing we're going to look at, man, this is honestly, this combination is it got a lot of frustration from Hawks fans, understandably so. Okay. It is tough for the Hawks to try and be competitive with their current front court rotation. It's really, really hard. So we're looking at the minutes that we had Niang and Dominic Barlow on the floor. First thing we're going to look at is defensively. Okay. I cut together an entire highlight reel of all the points Anthony Black and Cole Anthony scored, because I had someone in my comments who was trying to tell me that if Trae Young had the guard defense of Stephen Curry, then they wouldn't have went off. But this is exactly why it's so much more than just Trae Young's individual deficiencies, okay? When your big man needs help from your guard to this extent, it's a recipe for disaster. Now, is Trae unaware where Anthony Black is going? 100%. Should he have been more in the passing lanes and pressed off a little bit? Yes. But they have to show this level of driving help because Dom can't stick Paulo. It's not fair to ask Dom to do that anyways, but that's the current situation they have to do with the roster. Like, this team is going to have one Apollo or one of Franz on the floor at all times, and they don't have enough size, right? So Trae's a little bit out of position, or very much so out of position, as Dom sneaks behind him, as Anthony Black sneaks behind him. A good job by Paulo to throw it up so Niang can't meet him down low and use his size against him. But that's also like this. Across the board, you have size issues, right? You have Dom on Paulo and you have Niang on Jonathan Isaac. And especially when these two are on the floor, you saw a lot of offensive rebounds for Orlando, and you saw a lot of dunker spot buckets as a result, because they, again, they just don't have the size. Niang gets away with a little bit of offensive foul. He's holding it, but you see the size effect here. Maybe you could have dumped it off, but Jonathan Isaac is able to outjump Don Barlow. It's a good defensive rebound for Orlando. Here we see Niang is very passionate about guarding Paulo Banchero. If you remember earlier in the season, they had a back and forth where he told him to keep shooting those middies, see how that looks for you. Now, this is what I was talking about with the dunker spot. Barbecue chicken alert. Free eats for Orlando. Especially if you have look who's on the floor. Like, it's Karras and Terrence Mann next to Trae Young. Like, there's no one to help. They overload this side, which makes it tougher for Dom to help. And as soon as he helps, Terrence Mann takes this really weird angle. Like, his man is lifting, but you're not helping at all. Like, if Terrence Mann is going to help here, he needs to be getting Jonathan Isaac. He's floating into nothingness. He's doing nothing. Like, these are the types of plays that lose you games, because you can't afford to not do nothing when you have no size on the floor. The dunker spot was something I talked about in the preview. You cannot leave that unaccounted for. Orlando is going to look for that. And a lot of credit to Paulo here for getting it through those two players. He knows this coming, because you see Dom's rotating over, and you see that Terrence Mann is out of position. And that's just patience from Jonathan Isaac through all that contact. But it happens because Terrence Mann is not paying attention. He's not being in any sort of, helpful positions defensively. This was a nice pass from Trae, and you'll be able to get some buckets like this. You have to be able to, this type of lineup has to produce offensively. If Niang isn't hitting his shots and they're not able to get some easy buckets like that off the roll, it's going to be very tough for this team. Again, you could see oh man, it was late foul calls all night. I mean, you could just watch the official. He's waiting to see if he makes this before he decides if he's going to call it. And then the ball comes off and he calls it. But that's, here, Trae probably needs to show a little bit more, but I think he did enough to get Dom back into the frame. But Dom is more worried about the pass back than he is trying to get back in front of Paulo. And that's just all he needs to get downhill. And then as soon as he gets downhill, because you have your only size on him, Dom ends up bumping him. It ends up being a foul, but, they weren't going to call it if he made it. Let's look at it offensively. Screen and roll. Tough shot from Terrence Mann. Not ideal for him to be shooting this. And then Dom gets sealed off by Anthony Black. The other thing about Orlando, and this is also going to be true for Miami, they have guards who are smart on the glass. Like, Dom has to come down with this. You have to. And because he doesn't, Atlanta goes out of the way. Tough. Here's Cole Anthony gets to a pull-up midi, starting with the mismatch where the Hawks feel like they have to help. I don't know what Don Barlow is doing here. I don't know what Trae Young is doing here. The cohesiveness of this unit defensively was not great. And of course, they don't have the luxury of falling back on athleticism or length or anything like that to make it a little bit better. Here you see how much they're going to crowd. And again, this is something I anticipate from the Heat. There's 4 blue jerseys around him. I like this look. It's just a little bit too congested. He'd have to get that back out. The Karras there. I think this ends up, wait, did he end up getting that? But yeah, I think Trae got it back and then it got stolen back from him. Let's see. Now, remember, this is just over the span of 3 minutes, bro. It's 3 minutes of absolutely detrimental basketball and 0 offensive advantages created and a ton of defensive breakdowns. So after that, ends up being an open trailing 3 for Jonathan Isaac. Don Barlow grabs the ball, push the ball up the floor. Okay. You see Caris LeVert, who I felt like he was a little bit out of sorts offensively, but also it didn't seem like the bench was playing their usual like sort of flowing basketball. You don't want to get into tough shot making competitions with teams like this that thrive on the half court. You got to keep moving. You got to keep them moving. You can't let them set their half court defense. You can't bail them out with tough shots like that. So that's one thing. Defensively, okay, here we see a blitz. That's a good show from George. Push him to the baseline. I almost wanted Karras to, if Karras would have broken this a little bit earlier, that's a steal. But he has to stick with Jonathan Isaac. So I'm not blaming him because again, if he doesn't, now it's Trae Young on, and that's barbecue chicken. So a good job to reset here. Trae ends up rotating over. Gary Harris hits the 3. This is because of the size, right? Like if this is ideally, you could even possibly have a pre-switch here to have Terrence as a low man. I don't think you would really necessarily ever want Trae as a low man. If Terrence is a low man, is it still a disadvantage? Yes, but it's not nearly as much as if it's Trae. And then you would have him be able to more effectively close out here. But you're on, bro, like you're playing with, it's so hard to do anything when you don't have any semblance of size against a team that's going to try their best to get that size against you, right? So Trae smokes this layup. That's the respect from Niang as a shooter. He ends up double clutching it, which I think ends up making him smoke it. And then Atlanta's going the other way. Mind you, we're still in the first quarter, man. Still in the first quarter. I think this ends up being a takeaway, from Karras. He ends up not shooting it. That was 3 minutes of pain. 3 minutes of the Hawks. Because the other thing about the timing of that lineup, unfortunately, was also when the Hawks offense just fell off a cliff. And this lineup isn't good offensively or defensively. And so you really lose that momentum when Orlando's already scoring the ball more than you, and you put out your worst defensive lineup. Here we get a nice cut from Anthony Black that ends up not being called a foul. Trae shows here. Dyson then gets back to him. This is a better job cutting off the dunker, right? So Dom comes over. Niang is battling with Jonathan Isaac, but they're able to do that because they don't have anyone with size involved in the play. Like a team will try their best. That's one of the pluses of having Trae, I guess, like as the guy they want to attack, is like you can still leave your size on the other side of the floor. So hopefully they have more situations like this, like instead of like having Paolo. And that's the thing about when they're going to be playing Miami. Miami's initiator is Tyler Herro. They do play through Bam as well, but you're not going to have the size immediately pulled out unless Bam's operating at the top of the key. So if they can try and force it to be a Tyler Herro offensive game, I think they have a better chance of standing up against size than they did, because they have to put their biggest player and their best physical defender on the initiator, which takes them away from the glass and all that. That's just a tough shot from Cole Anthony. Hawks going the other way. I think this possession was a Dyson drive. He ends up missing this one. It was sort of a weird game offensively from Dyson. I felt like he wanted to impose himself, and I like this drive, but it's just a little bit too early. He doesn't have as good of an angle, and he just ends up losing it a little bit. Hawks are down 15. Some disruptiveness here, but you see, like, scramble plays are not good for the Hawks. They're not good for the Hawks, especially with this lineup on the floor, because this is where mismatches happen. And Dyson, I think, was Matt. I can't remember who was at the top of the key, but maybe it was Cole. It wasn't Cole Anthony. It was Anthony Black, maybe. And Reza Shea he wants to leak out, which is why he's out of position against Franz, but ends up putting Dyson in a position where it's tough for him to get in front of Franz before it's too late. And then Niang tries to go for a steal. Ends up being 2 points. They can't afford these types of plays. There were too many of these plays against Orlando that ended up leading to this loss. Here you see this was called a goaltend. It was a pretty obvious goaltend. Good job by Trey to get downhill. Let's see, man. It's honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's hard to watch this. This was not a shining moment for the Hawks either end. Screen and roll again, more Dom Niang pick and roll stuff. Cole Anthony was hot. I was shocked he didn't make that, if I'm gonna be honest. Let's see what we got here. Cross court pass to Rizachet. Nice drive by him. Gets Niang open. He's gonna have to be able to hit those. He didn't play like particularly wrong, but when he's in the game and hit those, it's a little bit deflating because it's like, well, you're out there to hit those and you don't make them. But you mean even the best NBA shooters shoot 40% on wide open threes. I like Dyson in these matches where guards try to go downhill on him. He's stronger than most and he has more length than most. He eats that bump, ends up pitting it off the glass. Hawks keep it in play. His ability to try and be as impactful as possible defensively when this lineup is on the floor is going to be really key. Good foul drawn by Trey. You had Dyson's. He had Dom Barlow there though, so probably would have preferred he do that. But I think he made both of these free throws, so not a huge deal. Then they come back with this lineup with 45 seconds to go. Again, a lot of that was foul trouble. You can see how little they respect Dom Barlow as an offensive player, like how much more keyed in Paolo is on the ball, and they're also going to pinch the floor as much as possible, right? So is there a time or a chance for him to pivot back around and get it back to Niang? I think Orlando is going to be pretty similar to Miami in the way they defend stuff like this. Like they're going to try and pinch the floor as much as possible, force Trey to pass it out. So look for these loop arounds, right? Look for Trey to get to these spots and then pivot back around and try to get back to Niang in tomorrow's game. Or probably tonight's game by the time y'all watch this, because I got to upload it. The same play. Dom Barlow eats it in the chest, but you can see how much they have to collapse. Nice job by Niang to fight on the glass, and then this is pretty much the end of the second quarter. Hawks go to the second quarter down 14. Trey has an ISO against Paolo. Ideally, we don't see him trying ISO as much. I thought that was a really nice move, though. I think he's been more crafty in these positions. So again, they fear him as a passer. It's a little sham, Smitty type move. Just misses it. It looks like Niang had a strong reaction there. I couldn't tell if he was open or if he just really thought I was gonna go in. Yeah. You just thought that was gonna go in. Now, like I said, this lineup made another appearance in the fourth quarter. If Wendell Carter is gonna make these types of shots, it's okay, right? It's okay. You have to give up something. This was out of a Spain pick and roll. The Hawks were trying to preemptively switch it, so they kept Dom low. I thought there was nothing really wrong with this defensive process. Just a tougher shot, and you'll live with that from Wendell. Okay, here you see the pick and roll. Magic again. They put two on the ball. They don't respect Dom's ability to make decisions in the short roll. And why would you? Like, why would you? It may look initially like he could do something here, but no. In this situation, unless you're going to go with the floater, you can't. Like, Wendell is in a better position than you think. He gets all ball. And then it ends up being a run out, and Dyson fouls before he can get a free 2 points. I would have loved to have seen him either have Dyson rotate higher up and call for the handoff. Dyson is doing the smart thing here, which is saying, hey, get it to Niang in the corner. I'm setting a screen. Look how heavily Frowns is over helping, but Dom isn't necessarily at that point in processing the game, right? So that's the biggest reason why that possession went the way it did. Then we got this ensuing possession. Trey's going to attack out of double drag. So this is a better play to run with this personnel because of Niang's gravity as a shooter. And hopefully you can get Dom down low. Ends up drawing the foul. Trey being able to foul base like what really kept us in this game, if I'm going to be completely honest. Now, this is a disaster. The Hawks are trying to defend Spain pick and roll here. So the way Spain pick and roll works, you have the big man set the screen on the ball, and you have a back screen that's intended to catch the big man as they're trying to navigate the pick and roll as this guard comes off the screen. What the Hawks are attempting to do here is say, hey, Trey, why don't you switch on the Cole Anthony and let Dom stay low? What's the problem is Niang, it looks like he's telling Dom, get back. So Dom's calling out the initial screen here. And then Niang says, hey, get back. It looks like Trey tells him something different. Trey's trying to scramble himself out of it. He's telling Dyson to come in. It's like a lot of talking, but no one's doing anything. Dom trying to get all the way back here, not the best option. Let's say it even is. Let's say Trey is in position to switch. Cole Anthony is barbecuing us. I think he deserves a little bit more defensive attention than being 20 feet away from him. And he drills the three. Okay. Let's look at the offense. No, not a bad decision from Niang, except when you look, again, this is something that they're going to have to be prepared against Miami. They do the same thing. They're going to dig off of Dyson. You got to be cognizant of that. You have to keep your dribble alive. And you really feel a lack of size or transition. Don Barlow's on the opposite side of the court. Good court awareness from Cole Anthony. Wendell runs the length of the floor. He was on Trey. He knows that if he runs out, he's going to have a mismatch because look where Don Barlow is. He's in the dunkers. Got to be aware of that. And then I think, yeah, so this is probably the last possession of the game when it really mattered. Now, I went through all of that because that was the defining stretch of the game. All right. With Mohamed Gay on the floor, which is essentially with Onyeka on the floor, yada, yada, whatever. Like I said, they were +2. They had a plus 3.9 offensive rating, plus 3.9 net rating. They had a respectable defense, 103.9. In the 22 minutes, Mohamed Gay was off the floor. 155.8 defensive rating. More apparently, okay. Their rebound percentage down 8%. Their true shooting percentage -16. All right. They're gonna need a good amount of minutes from Mohamed Gay. They're going to need it. And so that, it's important they don't get in foul trouble, but it's also important that Quinn does not over adjust. And you can't start the fourth quarter with Niang and Barlow. I'd rather you put in Gay and Onyeka and they end up fouling out. But it's like, I understand it too. Like there's only so much he can do with the current personnel. But it's very obvious how much better it is with these guys on the floor. Like, look how much more space they're covering. Look at the wings. Look at how much more of a presence they are in Franz's driving lanes. And this ends up being a great read from Trey. Like he's tagging Wendell, but he's really playing the passing lane. He's just waiting for that to come from Franz and then takes it away. And it helps because he has the length on the foot of the turret. Now, obviously, Onyeka is a much more polished offensive player as well. So that's an easy read for both Trey and Onyeka. Immediately flowing to the dribble handoff. And then Onyeka gets out the screen quick. Gets out of it quick, which puts on Wendell on his heels. He can't help out on Trey. He's out of position. It's the type of stuff you only get from having, hundreds of reps in the half court as an offensive player. And I'm not going to run through all these clips. I'm just going to give you all a taste of what it looks like and how drastically different it is on both ends with these guys on the floor. I did not realize Trey tried to no-look that. Oh, he actually got hit in the face. But I thought he tried to spin off on that. I didn't recognize that in real time when I was watching this. Wendell was the big problem, also just because he was really physical and he was doing a really good job on the glass. Like I said, they did a really good job on Paulo. He was 1 for 6 or 2 for 7 in the first half. Like they pretty much took him and Franz out the game just by being, strong defenders and, putting length on them and trying to force other guys to beat them, which in this game they did. I love this draft from Reza Shea. He's going to have to be aggressive. And again, notice how quickly Onyeka gets out this screen. Okay. He's playing on the fact that Orlando doesn't know he's going to make contact. Because he doesn't make contact, Wendell has to peel off. D-cell, step into the defender, and then don't continue going to the rim where the defender's flying past. Just finish over the top. I was like, oh, man. Reza Shea, he could have himself a game. He ended up not having it, but really good sign from him. If this is Niang or Barlow defending this is probably 2 points. So first off, Gay is paying attention, right? So Wendell is able to establish position with the way he's setting up for a screen, but then he instead turns and opens up. Gay's paying attention. He breaks on the ball. He's there as a presence. He's able to disrupt the shot and then tip it back out and they end up securing this rebound. Riche is going to have to knock these down. Muhammad, you could feel him in the beginning of this game, man, on the offensive glass, making an impact on the defensively. I think he had 2 offensive rebounds. I want to say I might be wrong. But I feel like he did, like in the first couple minutes. Here the Hawks are scrambling. I don't remember if he hits this. I don't think he did. Pretty good job scrambling here. So, like, they're going to X out to the back shooters first, which is KCP. Corey Joseph cuts through, makes himself not a threat. And then Wendell ends up taking the shot. Then Muhammad Gay steps up against Franz Wagner. They've got to push the pace off these types of possessions. Dyson kind of just, I understand the vision here. Franz is really good with his hands. This probably had to be a lead pass over the top, or he's got to get the Trey who has a better sort of angle on a lob. Probably what you would want to do there. Let's see what the next couple plays, and then I'll turn it over to the second part of the podcast, and you guys can hear our thoughts on how the Hawks can, improve and, address some of the things that didn't work as well in this particular game. I like this action to get Dyson downhill, and then boom, Muhammad Gay's there for the offensive rebound. Because again, teams will not necessarily guard him offensively. They're going to try and make him beat him, and the way you can take advantage of that is by being opportunistic on the glass as a screener. Which, again, because Paolo's sagging off, you have an option potentially here for Zach for a 3, or in this particular possession, he can get on the glass. He's going to have to do that against Orlando against Miami, because I'll keep saying it. They're going to play probably a very similar defense. They're going to ignore him offensively, and if he's not going to drill his threes, then he's got to make himself playable by doing that. Ends up being 3 seconds on Onyeka here. I remember that play. Ensuing possession, you see Muhammad Gay shaded over as the help. It's a little bit late, and also Franz is really good. Like, just look at this hezzy, quick, like, dip and pace. I like that Trey was digging a little bit. He ends up getting past Onyeka. Look at just a couple more offensive and defensive possessions. Trey gets to his floater. I feel like they miss a lot of makeable floaters, both him and Dyson. Now the Hawks are putting 2 on the ball because Trey ended up getting switched. You see the X out, so Onyeka goes to Corey. Zach Riche goes to Paolo Banchero. You still have Muhammad Gay in the dunker. Good effort to try and get out, and ended up missing the shot. Both teams couldn't make shit to start the game off. Ends up being a foul here. I like the idea from Zach here. These types of plays should probably be kickouts in tomorrow's game. To either one of these shooters. Most teams will try and cut off the corner pass. It's a very tough shot to take, and they're not going to give them the benefit of the doubt with the whistle. Let's see. I think this ends up being a dribble handoff with Dyson. Yes, so he's going to get into it. Crazy pickup. Man, I saw this. I was like, oh, Dyson, that was nasty. That's nasty work, nasty work. I love this from him. I love the offensive aggressiveness. I love that he knew to bring the ball up. Timed it perfectly, man. Like, look, you can see Corey Joseph's hand. You can see his hand right here. They're going to need, I think one of him or Zach Riche is going to really have to step up offensively. Zach has not played his best against Miami. These teams that are physical can give both him and Dyson problems. They're going to need it. Ideally, they don't have to double as much as they did in this game. I don't think they'll be doubling Herro a ton. I think they'll only really double Bam off of mismatches. Paolo and Franz both dictated a lot of doubling. So hopefully more of these like rotation heavy plays or dunker spot stuff like that isn't going to be as apparent. They're going to need their guards to rebound though, because their size is going to be occupied. Otherwise, big rebound from Dyson. Again, he was big on the glass all night, 12 rebounds. So yeah, that hopefully that gives you all a chance and a glimpse of what it looks like with size on the floor. Now we just have to pray that against a team that doesn't draw a ton of fouls, although Tyler Herro has done a really good job at that. The Hawks have to be really disciplined. Their bigs have to be really, really disciplined. Doesn't mean you don't challenge shots, but it means you're more decisive on when you do. But yeah, we'll be rooting for a Hawks victory. Part 2 of the podcast is coming up. A really great conversation with my guy, Coach Lou. What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Part 2 of the podcast, man. Looking forward to this one, although I'm not necessarily looking forward to playing this particular team. My guy, Coach Lou, a.k.a. Saucy Takes, he's back with us to talk through this matchup. This is a tough one for Trey. This is a chance to exercise some demons, rewrite some narratives, okay? This Miami Heat team has been like a final boss for Trae Young. And it's because there are some teams that are uniquely positioned to attack his deficiencies and the Hawks' overall roster deficiencies, right? And so just to paint this picture, right? That playoff series in 2022, masterful job from Coach Spoelstra. Heavy gap defense. He understood before the Hawks did that nobody on that team could create their own shot. And they were entirely reliant on Trae Young's ability to put them in spots to succeed. And it meant that Trae had to spoon feed everyone on that roster. Kevin Huerter, the only guy who could reliably create his own shot was Bogdan Bogdanovic, right? As a result of that playoff series, they made the worst decision in their franchise history. They brought in DeJounte Murray, gave up draft capital. And now the team that they've had, as a result of making that mistake, sometimes you have to fall and fail before you can you pick yourself back up. They brought in Dyson Daniels. They got blessed with Zachary Shea. This team that we have this year is a little bit more reminiscent of that 2022 team, even though the guys on the roster are a little bit better, dribble, pass, shoot, whatever. So I guess my first question to you is, I know that Trae Young is polarizing. I know that different fan bases have different viewpoints of him. I think out of any fan base, the Heat probably have the least respect for him. Like, y'all's fan base probably has the least respect for him. I know that you in particular, I think like some of the discussion I see about him is like, he's a foul baiter, I think your fan base really appreciates hard workers, grittiness. Like, this guy dies on the loose balls. They don't see Trae do that, even though he does, right? They see the complaining, they see whatever it may be. Like, he's not a super physical guy, so I don't think he gets the respect from Heat fans. Where is and I know you may have different feelings about the outcome you would like in this game, but what are your feelings about Trae Young coming into this game? Are you expecting more of the same? Are you expecting struggles? Are you expecting a stronger performance? Like, what are your overall thoughts?
I mean, just in general, I'm expecting another chess match. Like, every time, we get Spo having to try to figure out the chess match that is Trae Young, because, however you can feel about him, your personal opinions about him as a scorer, as an NBA player, as a star, whatever it may be, at the end of the day, every time you play the Atlanta Hawks, he's the top and most important thing on that scouting report is how do we stop Trae Young? And I mean, I'm curious. I'm interested that you said that, just to like sidetrack real quick, because on my TL, everybody loves Trae Young. Like,
y'all do try and trade for him. That is true.
Yeah, we've been trying to trade for him for, it feels like 2 years now. Do I want him on the team? I guess depends on the price. Like, I mean, I don't think we're a Trae Young away, but just in terms of like, it's always a chess match with you guys, and in particular, I think Spo. To be very honest, if we're betting on chess matches, I think I wouldn't bet on many other coaches over Spo to try to figure something out. I think typically the only guy who's given him trouble to figure out has been Jokic. I mean, come on, like, he gives everybody trouble, to be honest. And it's not to say that Trae Young is figured out, but I do think to a certain degree, like you said, just the personnel that we have and some of the schematics and the way we use them have benefited in some more favorable games from Trae Young in terms of from like a Heat perspective. Like, I wouldn't say we've stopped him or we've like shut off the water. I think that's completely false, but we've definitely helped slow down the pressure, or like the water phase, like the fire hydrant hasn't exploded. Like, we've kept it under control for the most part, which is good. But it all starts with him. Like, it all starts with him from our standpoint. I'm curious to see how we're going to defend him this time around, because this year also Trae Young has been the most passive I've seen in terms of like not getting his own shot, like getting others involved, which and I think some of that is just the way that Quinn Snyder coaches. Correct me if I'm wrong. In the way he facilitates and plays guys around, which is probably beneficial in the long term. I'm just curious to see how we attack him and in how many different ways, how much Kalel plays, how much Bam plays, what's the scheme there. I think we can't give Trae Young just a bunch of the same drop, because he's going to pick it apart.
Yeah, so I think I like what you said about the chess match. So I'm gonna show a graphic that I saw related to zone defense, and I think most people are probably familiar with this concept that no one plays zone more effectively than Miami, right? So this is looking at the percentage of half-court possessions, right, defending a zone in zone, and Miami's the only team above 10%, and they're almost at 15, right? So they're a team that does things defensively that most teams, I mean, you guys see, there's only 3 teams above 5, right? So they do things that most teams don't. And you also notice that a lot of these teams that are playing zone are ones that have double bigs, right? So Cleveland, Houston, Milwaukee, etc. Right? These are teams
Yeah.
that are either trying to insulate their bigs that can't move as much in the half court, or they're trying to take advantage of the size they have to cover up that length, right? And Miami, until they started Khalil Ware, wasn't really doing that, right? And I think that in a way, you almost want to play Trey man to man, and that's because of how good he is as a passer, but also because the biggest advantage that you guys can actually generate defensively may be switching Bam onto him, right? So it's like that comes with other implications across the board, whether it's rebounding or whatever it may be. But that's a huge option for you guys, right? So there's all these different things they can throw at him. Would you assume they start with man to man? Because that's what I'm assuming as well.
Yeah. I think they're 100% going to roll out, man. I think Wiggins is going to get first look at him. And I think the more interesting part of our defensive scheme is going to be whether or not we throw Khalil on Gay and Bam on Okongwu, just because I feel like more of your pick and roll actions is going to be like, I as a Heat fan, I would want Bam involved in more of these pick and roll reps. So if that's the case, I'd rather Gay be the screener than Okongwu, because Okongwu's a better just play finisher, passer out of the short roll. Like he's just more effective as a roller and as a screener than Gay is. So I'd rather, if you want to funnel Mohamed Gay, through 37 screens, then that's fine with us.
Right.
Kind of
yeah. So we're gonna take a look at some possessions, particularly with Trey on the court, against this type of defense, because it's been, and you pointed this out on the live we just did, the Hawks offense has been decent outside of the games that they ended up winning in Atlanta, which was 86-98, which was one of the nastiest games all season, right? Tons of fouls, tons of turnovers.
Yep.
Went to Miami, they ended up losing there. The follow-up game, the 26, they lost pretty badly. And in the 2 games that Miami has won in this season, you said that they shot the best they have all season. I think it was it 51% and 54%, something like that?
Yeah, 54.8 and 54.5. So
Right.
Ridiculous percentage from 3, that is. This is just from 3.
Yeah.
Like,
and so that plays a big factor into it, right? And you mentioned on the pod as well, like when you're making shots, it's a lot easier to set your defense. And the one thing that Atlanta cannot do against Miami is play in the half court. And that was something I was touching on, because there's just too much length and size on this court, right? Davion is he's really tough to score on, like obviously a dog. But just from their front court, like just like looking at the size, like we're not even going to look at the game when Jalen Johnson played, because that's how different this team is with him off the floor. And so everyone else on the, you have this intrinsic disadvantage with Trey, with his size. So everyone else has to play big, right? It's like here's in semi-transition, like you can even see the hesitancy from Trey. Like he's not going into the paint because Khalil is right there and Bam is right there.
Yep.
And so then you also see how willing Miami is to shrink the floor against us too. And I think you mentioned that you feel like, like you guys don't have a ton of respect as a team, as a shooting team, but I also feel like the Hawks may also struggle from that and sort of a little bit, because they can shrink the floor as much as they want, but it feels like you guys will be able to do a better job of doing that just because of the size and the athleticism, the length, whatever it may be, right? So it's going to be important that, Trey gets as many looks like this as he can, because the other thing was against Orlando, because they have so much size, he wasn't able to get to his three-pointer a lot. And then, of course, again, the same thing with the size. It's harder for him to get into the lane. One thing you were talking about was like Khalil Ware's defense, right? And this doesn't necessarily directly involve him, but I think that there's something that they can do with him, not exploit him, but like just kind of put him in points, like situations where he has to make decisions that he may not be as polished at doing, right? So you mentioned some of the drop cover stuff. We'll look at that. On this particular play, it feels like, if he's in the paint, like why not contest this, right? So how do you feel about like his defense holding up in this matchup?
So I guess like the thing with Khalil all season has been, we started off the year when he was playing, we really were running just basically 80% zone when he was in the game, just because his feet and his feel and just pick and roll coverage, whether that has been dropped or the few times he has played at the level, that's not who he is as a defender. And he really just struggles at timing when to go for the guy. Sometimes he overcommits, gives up offensive rebounds on the backside. Sometimes he doesn't commit at all and the guy gets a free layup. Like So I mean, I just think the Kalel thing is going to be interesting. That's why I would put him on. I'd rather Bam guard all these actions than Kalel, which is, it's a nice I guess secondary piece to have, is probably the best defender in basketball, or one of the best defenders in basketball, being the predominant guy on these actions. But in terms of Kalel, I'd be curious to see how much he plays. Just in general, and how impactful he can be, because he's kind of a mixed bag in just in pick and roll, man to man, drop coverage in general. And realistically, that's almost exclusively where he's going to be used at. Like, they're not gonna I don't think I've seen Kalel wear blitz a pick and roll all season, so I don't think that's going to be something we're going to throw out there, especially if he's the screen, the guy guarding the screener. At the level, stuff has been a little bit inconsistent. Maybe if it's Muhammad Gay, and he might not be as explosive of an athlete as a Kongu, they try some of that stuff. But even then, like, that's not really been his forte either. They're probably just going to try to keep him as close to the rim as possible.
So, and we've seen teams like try to put two on the ball against Trey when they have bigs. They've seen him like show like he's going to see every coverage possible, right? So here, this is the situation the Hawks. When this happens, I just want Trey to get off the ball. Okay, and the reason why I say that,
I respect it.
Bam is the best ISO defender in basketball, okay? Switching, there is not an advantage to be gained here, unless Trey is shooting the ball immediately or he makes a decisive move. I don't remember exactly what he does in this possession. You see, I would much rather he ends up missing this. I would much rather this. Like, this is
I was going to say
35% shot.
That's a good shot in terms of like that possession, just the Bam switch. Like, that's you're comfortable with that.
Yeah,
I would be if I was a Hawks fan.
Yeah, this is. I know, deep shots, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, this is a much better alternative than trying to ISO against him, right? And the other thing is, if this is going to happen, when Bam is at the top of the key, they have to crash. They have to crash. It's because you see Bam doesn't crash here, and this ends up, Clint's able to at least get a hand on it. They end up calling it over the back. Also, like, who plays the 4? Is it Kyle or is it Haywood? Like, when Kalel's out the game?
We've ran a lot. It's going to be a mix of those two, but Kyle Anderson has been a very nice surprise as of recently. So I guess, like, to most Heat fans, I mean, if anybody saw him play last year for the Timberwolves, you saw how effective he was. But he's been really helpful. Really smart guy, and just gives Bam some more size than what Haywood typically gives you. Haywood's not really a 4 whatsoever. I think he's more of like a 3. But he's more comfortable being a guard than he is a forward, in my opinion. So
yeah, I thought Kyle was actually pretty good in the games that we played, y'all. And the funniest thing to me was, like, you have two slow guys and him and Niang, and Kyle was busting his ass. He was busting his ass.
You guys need, if you watch the MHB podcast after yesterday, after we beat the Bulls, I'm advocating for, let's run a ones tournament. George Niang, Kyle Anderson, up to 11, 3 dribbles. Fuck it. Whoever wins next round. That'd be the most entertaining brand of basketball I think we could have seen. Because they're so unique.
I really think, like, it might be Niang who wins that, but I think in a fives context, like, Kyle is actually sneaky good, like, as a mismatch hunter. So you can even see, like, he starts his possession going at Trey. And even with that type of contest, like, that's not a terrible shot. But these are the type of possessions that will define the game. Like, the Hawks they got to push. They have to push the pace. They have to get out, especially in situations like this where it's like semi-transition. Like, that will, and for Trey in particular, that's when I need him looking for his shot. You could just see the impact of length here. They don't have this vertical threat. We talked about this a little bit on the live we just did. So as bad as Clint has been this season, his vertical threat is what keeps Bam from committing to Trey fully here, and what has him in this sort of no man's land. And if this is Dom Barlow, like, Dom can get up there, but I don't think Bam is going to respect him as much as a lob there. So it's like, does that then mean that he comes out, like, harder on Trey there? When you see Bam in these, this is a technically drop, right? It's coming off of a pin down or a screen, an off-ball screen for Trey. When you see Bam in these situations and it's a more ground-bound big, just off the top of your head, like, how do you think he typically plays things like this? Because I think these types of looks may not be as effective for Trey without his lob threat on the floor.
So on this, like, it's okay. This one's very in particular because this is empty side.
Yep.
Bam would almost entirely try to bait this as a lob. Like he would not commit to the ball handler because he's empty side.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of doesn't commit to the ball handler. He ends up giving up the lob in this instance, but like,
He's not
I don't think
up. Yep.
yeah, I don't think this is Bam's responsibility since it is empty side. Look how congested the right side of the floor is. Like we should have been able to contain this without Bam having to step up whatsoever.
Yeah.
So just in this particular example, at least,
Yeah, and I think this is also like intentional to go to Duncan as that next defender, right? So we're like, if it was Davion there, or if it's Haywood, like that's not,
or even Burks is better than than Duncan. Yeah.
But you see, I mean, Trey goes right past him, and there's no effort to
he doesn't even
try
dig.
and dig. Yeah, he doesn't dig at all, and so it ends up being a lob. So like, I think that's a good play design from the Hawks, but obviously just not as good execution. Here you see the size issue, right? So I think this was a rejected screen, if I remember correctly, right? So he wanted to go this way, it ends up being a reject, and he tries to go to a slow step. You see the aggressive help from Burks as well to deter the corner pass. And he gets Wiggins in the air, but it doesn't really matter because he's still super tall. Ends up being a deflection. That's also, I think we talked about this after this game, or maybe it was the game after that. This was like the best pass I ever saw Clint Capella throw, right? So like, this is actually a no look Magic Johnson behind the head to Niang. And these, like, again, like, the dude was garbage this season. Like, I'm going to be honest, but like, this is not the type of luxury that the Hawks will have. This is a very contested offensive rebound. It's going to be very tough for Onyeka or Mohamed Gated to secure anything like this, just because of their size and, the way they play. So that's going to be something they're honestly going to miss against a team like this. Like, even against Orlando, they do miss Clint Capella. They don't miss him against most teams, but against a team like Orlando or Miami.
100%. I think my confidence in terms of the Heat winning the game is so much higher without Clint Capella on the floor than it would be with him on the floor. And it's just because his activity near the glass, he's able to buy you a couple of these second possessions. He's able to, just do enough, draw over the backs and just be a nuisance to Miami. And we struggle with bigs that are that big and that athletic when Bam isn't on the floor. Like our defensive rebound percentage with just Khalil Ware on the floor is not as high as it is when Bam's on the floor just by himself.
Right.
And Bam's smaller than him. It's just the box out thing, like the strength thing is still an issue for him as a rookie. And it's not like we're the deepest big team either. Like, we have two of them when we play them together. So
here you get to see two put on Trey here. I assume there must have been some sort of switch that ended up getting Wiggins off of him, and you see the comfortability to leave Bam, one-on-one against Trey, and you see why, right? I think this ends up being called a foul on Trey. Yeah. And so he's able to force him to pick the ball up, and then because of that wingspan, able to get a hand on the ball. You've got the size on the backside that sort of defends them from getting it over the top. So again, like, that's a nightmare situation to try and go against Bam, at least in my opinion. Here you see the difference in the drop coverage when it's Khalil, right?
My goodness. So this play was awful from Khalil.
Yeah. So he's not splitting the difference well. He leaves a bounce pass open which goes directly under his arm, and he doesn't have any help on the weak side because of Karras is occupying Andrew Wiggins. He doesn't end up committing to that cut. Or that's Alec Burks. And good dig from Hamed, but it's too late because of Khalil was out of position. So they have to win those minutes, which means I would probably try and, obviously Trey's going to play a lot of minutes just because of how bad we are without him. I would ideally try and see if he can play when Khalil's as the center. This is his quick offense. They're going to have to try and get to this. But yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, games like these, I think you try to win within the margins and within things that you can control as a coach and as a team. And I 100% think one of those things is when Bam is off the floor, you want Trey on the floor. Like, you want Trey and Okongwu on the floor when Bam is off the floor. Like, the 10, 8 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever it may be, you want to get as much of an advantage as you possibly can while Trey is on the floor. With Bam off the floor, just because, if you win those minutes, those 6-8 minutes by 6 points, that could be the difference in the game, to be honest.
Yeah, that would be ideal. I think the challenge is, like, where can you buy those minutes? And the rough thing is that they don't have tenable backup big play, right? So it's like, does that mean and I would assume, like, I don't know I don't know how Spo will play this. I assume it's a must win, right? Like he's super competitive. I'm sure all the guys on his team are competitive.
Dude,
So like,
Spoelstra, when we were losing 10 games in a row, he was like, we're right on the cusp of turning this season around. Like you can we were 11-30, and this man did a press conference after losing 5 out of 6 games in 2017. I remember it to this day. I was working at the arena at the time.
mhm.
And he came out and he said, nah, you guys are tweaking. Like basically he was like, nah, you guys have like untrained eyes. Like we're on the cusp of being great. And we rattled off 13 in a row. I will never not trust this man after watching that 11-30 team win 13 games in a row. Cause he said like, no, we're right there. So yeah, he tries to win every single game. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't believe in tanking or in losing on purpose.
So we're gonna take a look at just some of the splits from the most recent game that we played. Y'all, this was on the 27th of March. Before we head back to the film real quick, because I want to emphasize that point you made about Bam's impact. Okay, this is from Pivot Fade. This is a game that y'all won decently comfortably. I don't remember this being incredibly competitive. In the 37 minutes he played, plus 22.
Yeah.
In the 10 minutes he was on the bench, minus 12. And you look at both the offensive and the defensive splits. Okay, like defense is garbage, the offense is garbage. So these will be key minutes, just like it's key minutes for y'all to win the trade minutes, the non-trade minutes. And I think if we're talking like feasibility wise, like what's easier to do, I think it's a lot easier to like. We know you have some offensive challenges. I think it's easier to win the non-trade minutes because the Hawks' offensive drop off is a little bit stronger than like the Heat's defensive drop off, at least in my opinion, right? So I think it's more feasible that you guys win those. I know that you were also talking a lot about like the floor general aspect with having, Davion on the floor. I know we talk X factors too. Like Niang is going to be huge. His performance is pretty tied to whether we do well. He didn't play well against Orlando. He wasn't hitting his open shots. When he's hitting stuff like this, it's very hard for the Hawks to be guarded in the half court. Over the last 2 weeks, they're a top 3 offense. So they're trending in the right direction, even if they didn't perform just as well against Orlando. Here, this is early offense, catching Kalel out of position. This is like I want to call out what Onyeka does here, right? Like he kind of runs instead of splitting the difference here, like he runs around Andrew and he just runs out of his eyesight. Andrew picks it up, Kalel doesn't, right? And so there's some of the attention, the detail stuff that he has to be better at, but that's something for the Hawks to like look to, not just in the half court, but in transition as well. I think this possession, again, I know you said they'll probably start with Andrew. They're gonna try and hunt Herro as much as possible. When you see, like, I know you said that like they don't blitz with Kalel. Do they typically show like this with Tyler and then try to recover, or is it just going to be a switch?
So it depends on the playoff series, or it depends on if it's a bigger guy, they almost always try to get Tyler to like show and he recovers himself, like just like almost like a hedge and recover. But I think on Trey, ultimately, I do think they're going to try to they're going to try to get Tyler to run away from as many of these as he possibly can. Which might, it might open up some short rows and stuff like on this one, Dyson's able to slip and it seems like the rest of the team is completely asleep here.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I think, not to give y'all any pointers, but I think that should be high on the Miami Heat scouting report. Like the Hawks slip screens constantly. And so if you're going to show and not be aggressive in your show, and you give Trey time to diagnose the defense and the help defenders aren't locked in, like this pass is actually timed perfectly, right? It's right when Bam looks away. Bam's looking away. And by the time he looks back, the ball's already in motion. And then Kalel's not paying attention either. So
and
it will take everyone.
Yeah, in that particular play, like Bam should not even be worried about Muhammad Gay out there. Like if the jumper should not be a priority over the open, just the open runner.
So Trey has been really good from the corner this season, and I like what they did here to try and get him a good look, right? So that was an initial screen from Dyson. He gets to like sort of a fake handoff type thing, end up putting 2 on the ball against him. The high fake for that lob, which freezes Kalel, and then this is no one picks him up here, right? Like technically it's Bam, but he doesn't want to switch. Davion's a little bit out of the play, and it's an audible from Zach to get him open.
Yep.
He ends up missing it. but it's a really good screen, and that's the type of stuff Zach's gonna have to do. Like not just knock down his own shots because he's been pretty bad against y'all. 6.8 points per game, and it's not like he's not playing. Like in an average of 26 minutes per game, he's averaging 6 points, 35% from the field, 30% from three, and 25% from the free throw line. He's at a 41 true shooting percentage. They're gonna need him to be big, but not in like a huge scoring outburst, but more so like playing to his caliber and playing to his size. They're going to need his size. They're going to need his decision making. Unfortunately, it's just like a team. Again, like I've talked a lot about the physical aspect of this team in Orlando. It's tough for Zach because he's still a little bit skinny, right? So it's tough for him to get to his spots against a team that's going to be physical with him. I think if Onyeka can hit a couple of threes, that'd be nice too. I'm not like super like convinced that he'll do it like super consistently, but like that would do a lot for this team because obviously like we need to space the floor, and it gives them options when it's not like again smart to not attack Bam and look for your own shot here. Like this, I really like seeing that from Trey. Let's see what else we've got here. That's good defense from Kalel. And ends up being a miss, but that's like these are the type of offensive rebounds I would expect the Hawks to get, right? Like not necessarily like grinding on the glass, but more so like a longer rebound or it's more incidental. I can't believe they called that a foul. This was a bad, poorly officiated game, but I guess like when you think about like where this team's mindset is, obviously they had a great performance. That was a crazy pass. They had a great performance against Chicago. And then you've got the Hawks coming in from an embarrassing performance against Orlando. Just generally, like, how has this team performed? Like, I know they had that terrible stretch of 8 losses in a row. Like, how are they like performing like the ebbs and flows? It was 10 in a row.
It was 10, dude.
Oh,
horrible. I mean, great time. We had up the 8th pick in that time.
So like in general, like where do you think that like how do they perform when they perform at their best? Is it after like a great game like they get against Chicago, or like when they're trying to bounce back, they have a chip on their shoulder? Like I think that's something that people think about.
I think I have a quarter around here. You never know, man. Might as well flip a coin. Like we never know what version of this team we're gonna get. I do think last game in particular, like against the Chicago Bulls, was the best rotation Spo has ran all fucking season. Like literally, it's what we've been asking for since November. Obviously, Kyle Anderson, Wiggins, Davion weren't on the team, but all we've been asking for has been simple. It's been no Jaime. It's been no Terry Rozier. Like it's that simple. Like that's all we've asked for. And whether that comes out more Burks, more Pell, it doesn't matter who else plays. Just not those two guys. And last game we ran 9 deep. It was we're going to be running the same starters. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Tyler, Burks, Wiggins, Bam, and Kalel, and then off the bench it's going to be Davion, Duncan, Highsmith, and Kyle Anderson. And Highsmith is probably he's going to play this matchup, but he's probably like the 9th guy, I guess, in that like 9th man or whatever. So like I said, last game I felt it was going to be the best rotation. Spo always. I joked about it yesterday. I think Spo has this thing where he spends the whole year like an employee who just doesn't give a shit. And then when it's end of the year and the reviews are due and it's time for a bonus, he's like, "Ah, shit, I actually got a coach." And he gets up and just dials in the most exquisite game plan, locks in the rotation, and you're like, we could have used this for like the other 70 games of the regular season where you didn't do this. So it's really fascinating to see. And I guess that's where like the aura of like the Heat being a shitty seed and like the year that we made the finals is part of it had to do with that. Some of it has to do with shooting, just shooting, being lucky with their shots going in or not, but I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do. I feel comfortable saying that I think they're probably just going to stay with the same rotation and roll out literally the same 9 guys. And if they had to roll a 10th man out, it would probably be Paul Larson.
Yeah, the Hawks were pretty tight with their rotation outside of like, I didn't have a ton of issues with what we did against Orlando. It was more so the timing of when certain guys were on the floor, right? So we talked about a little bit earlier in the first part of this pod, but they ended up going 10 deep technically, which is not typical for like a must-win game. They had I think they had 7 guys play over 20 minutes. And so I don't think that's necessarily what we'll see. They only had one person who had a positive plus minus. It was Mohamed Gay, who I think would be a big factor in this game. But to come back on the film, like, again, I'm not going to keep belaboring this point, but this is going to be the only way for the Hawks to generate like super reliable offense, right? I don't want to see us like try and be in the half court as much. And this is where you can again exploit some of Miami's more aggressive tendencies, right? So like this is like, I think you guys are really keyed in on trying to stop Trey, which is what you should be doing here.
Yeah.
But there's 3 guys going after him, and you've got Mohamed Gay streaking, right? So if he plays big, I think that's a big difference maker in this game, and that's a hell of a pass from Trey as well. Now this was I think a better like result for Atlanta, but they actually didn't score the ball really like incredibly well in this game. Here you get to see some of what that drop coverage will look like from Khalil. Like he plays a really deep drop, right? Like
super deep.
And he's
not deep enough for him sometimes.
Yeah. And honestly, he's giving up both. I feel like he's giving up. He's in somewhat of a no man's land. This is a really good screen from Onyeka. I think he ends up just clipping Davion a bit, and that's just how automatic, flow from here from Trey. And then also like notice that they've got other motion going on, right? So they've got Dyson lifting, which makes it harder for Herro to tag Onyeka. They've got Mohamed Gay switching from the different sides of the dunker spot. They've got Zachary Regis fanning back out to the 3-point line. So, even if Davion doesn't fall down, like I feel pretty good about them generating a decent shot on that particular look. And I don't think you want to show Trey a ton of drop. But that is necessarily what they're probably going to have to do. This is better congestion from you guys here, like I think on this possession. So you see Khalil doesn't really respect Gay as a shooter here. So even though Gay is a good bit away, he's going to hurry and get over here quicker and ends up being out of reach for Onyeka anyway.
And I think that's what we have to do. Like we have to, and part of, to your guys' point, like if you guys want to win this game, I think your bigs are going to have to shoot. And I think they're going to have to shoot somewhat well enough, where we have to respect it. I mean, obviously I'm pretty sure you would feel uncomfortable if between Gay and Onyeka, you guys got up like 7 or 8 threes. That's probably not, the best thing in terms of like efficiency wise you want to do for a whole season. But if they're hitting them this game, like that makes a difference. Like in that play, Khalil completely disregards Mo Gay. I think that's something that benefits the Heat more than, it benefits you guys. Like you want the roll area to be as clear as possible. And you do that when you're hitting shots. So if you're keeping the other 3 guys that are not involved in the pick and roll occupied, it makes those other 2 guys' job extremely hard because of everything that Trey can do, whether that's he has one of the best floaters in the league. Obviously his pull-up jump shooting is good, but his ability to get to the foul line and to hit whatever pass is necessary, like your shooters, if your shooters are on, I think you guys are playing Cleveland on Sunday.
Yeah, that is the age-old question, man, because if it like in the games that we shot the ball, obviously, it was easier for us. Where y'all shot the ball, it was easier for y'all. Like it will, not to simplify it, but it will come down to that.
Some of it is literally that it's a one game. It's not a series, so like there is a lot of variance that can happen in one game.
Yeah, I liked this shot from Trey. Just because Kyle's out of position, he probably could have shot it quicker, and it would have been a little bit easier for him. I think that's where he's going to have to take his threes because, again, I don't think you guys are going to just necessarily just allow him to, hunt them in the half court because that is his most reliable offense. I like that he was able to get down off the dribble against Kyle here. I think Karras ends up making this, and this is a big difference too for like the Hawks offense. For Karras to be able to turn this into a rim attempt is like unheard of. Also, Alec Burks jumped way higher than I expected there, but this is not something that most guys in the Hawks roster like historically have been able to do. And that's a really good contest from Bam as well. But Trey being able to turn an isolation possession into a good rim attempt because you see how many guys again, like this is potentially open as well. I think you guys are going to try and shrink the paint as much as possible. Like, is that a general defensive principle or is that just like
100%?
Okay.
100%. The Heat, I think every year it's felt like for the last 5 years, we give up like one of the highest field goal percentages at the rim, but part of that is because we give up the least shots at the rim. So we'd rather just cut it off completely than, and live with the 3-pointers. But I mean, something to point out in those 2 plays where, Trey got favorable looks, it was a lot of Cal Anderson on him. I don't think that's going to be the case whatsoever.
Yeah.
Whether it was the quick three,
Mm-hmm.
this one, and then the previous one where he got the blow by. Wiggins is on the floor. Why is Kyle Anderson guarding Trae Young? Like, you're already setting yourself up to set up.
A lot of this is I can't remember exactly for this possession, but anytime the Hawks push, they're going to try and get cross matches. So
and
that could be part of it.
To your point. Yeah, that's to your point about pushing paces. You want to get the best defenders off of Trae as much as possible.
Yeah. And now I know I mentioned that I want Trae to pass it in these situations, but the advantage here for Miami is that they know no one wants to attack Bam. And so this is really smart from Herro. Like, he's playing the pass because he's expecting Trae to do so, because that's what Trae's done all game. So you can't be predictable there either. But that also doesn't mean just go and try and attack Bam. It just means like the Hawks' other guys have to be in position to do something else besides that. Also, this reminded me, I see a Herro pull up for, he probably made this.
I think
when you saw him do that in that game when y'all were down 4, like, what went through your head?
It's Tyler being Tyler. That's what went through my head. Like, people were arguing both sides. He should have just taken the 2. Like, let's be completely non-biased and honest. Like, just from a math standpoint, the 3 makes no sense there. But, am I upset with it? Not nearly as much. This Heat team hasn't given me a whole lot to care about this season. So I was just, and it was against the Bulls. We hadn't beat them, it felt like, all season. Surprisingly, we beat them obviously yesterday when it mattered. Some of that is Spo, some of that is Tyler, but it was just an interesting. It was like a I guess, dude, like, whatever. But we wouldn't have been in that game if it wasn't for Tyler's offense, anyways. So like, he, I'm pretty sure you feel like that sometimes too, where like Trae misses a clutch shot and everybody's like, oh man, I'm fucking tired of him taking these bad shots in the clutch, or look, this could have been better here. Like, sometimes you fucking live with it. Like, if that guy is your tough shot maker and he felt like that was the best shot, like, maybe you disagree with it on a fundamental level and like a basketball X's and O's, or like a number standpoint, but like Spo sometimes says, man, fuck the numbers. Like, you just gotta, like, the eye test sometimes wins over everything. Like, and it's, there's something you can't account for, and that's just like where a player feels comfortable sometimes. And that does not excuse Tyler from taking that shot. Horrible shot, in my opinion, but like, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, clutch games are a wash. Like, we talking about 50-50 when it's like, in terms of what the Miami Heat team will come out. Like, there's a reason all the all-time great players are below 40% on like go-ahead shots in the playoffs, right? It is literally the most high-intensity situation where the defense is keyed in to stop someone. It's a 50-50, right? And no one's going to run set plays in those scenarios.
And it's always a half court, like, like it's always a half court set. You sub in, you sub out, so it's the best 5 defenders basically. Yep. Versus your best 5 offensive players. And it doesn't matter who the other 4 are. If you have one guy who's that guy, it's going there anyways. Yep. Like, so it's legitimately, it's set up for your best player to not be successful. And I think teams need to adjust. Spo in particular, I think if this is a clutch game, I think you guys will win. I cannot stand the way we run offense in the fourth quarter. It goes back to like when we used to have the big 3 here, and we would just or even Jimmy, like, it's just very heliocentric offense. And I think if you turn Tyler into a heliocentric player, you guys will win this basketball game.
Good to know. Here we get to see Herro like defending Trae. He doesn't. I don't know. I think he's good positionally, but he just doesn't strike me much fear. Like he just looks hesitant as a defender.
Dude, he does nothing on defense.
And here you see like why this is such a problem. Like, he doesn't really know if he should switch or not. And then he ends up leaving Bam in a bad position, and it's an easy basket. Again, there's no Kalelo on the floor, so there's no size on the backside either. So I think, as much as you guys will probably try and hunt Trae, I think there's going to be, it's going to be tit for tat. They're going to be doing the same thing on the other end. And so the Hawks bigs are going to have to be ready to try and finish through that. Here's like, I think he ends up missing this one. If they're gonna go under, like, he's gonna have to take a couple of these. Like, he's too good of a 3-point shooter even if he hasn't been super consistent. So he's gonna have to take some of those. Let's see. I think this is an inbounds play. It ends up being a dunk. So, somewhat of a wash, but guys got sort of lost there. this is where they will put 2. I know, like, you guys will mix it up, right? So Bam keeps his hands high, which keeps that dive from Onyeka from really impacting them. Now, Trey gets off of it to Dyson to see if he has an angle on it. He doesn't. You see the hesitancy. That was a travel.
Bam, great defense too,
Yeah.
recovering.
Great defense. And you see how active he is here. Like, he's denying the corner pass, and then there's not really a great entry for there because of the way the Wiggins is playing. And then they just flow back into it. But there you see how quickly it can fall apart.
Literally.
How quickly, like, that was a great defensive possession. This is that slip screen, right? Like, Tyler is in no position to defend this. And Andrew isn't either. He tries to tell Tyler to switch, but Tyler just is not paying attention. And it's really great aggressiveness from Dyson to take it to the rim. And then you have Bam, who's somewhat out of position because he's guarding Terrence Mann, so there's no rim help either. So if whoever can adjust quicker, who can be more in tune with the other players and other teams' tendencies. Like, we've seen each other 4 times this year. But I think that, when coaches have more time to draw up, here's their tendencies, here's how we're going to play this, here's how we're going to play that.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, ultimately, we've seen each other 4 times. And we see each other it feels like 5 times every year now because of the play-ins and obviously the fucking playoff series.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nothing schematically that you guys are going to do that we haven't seen, and vice versa. Like, it's just, it's very rare for it to happen. Maybe we do 1 or 2 things different just because we have had so much player turnover.
Mm-hmm.
But like, realistically, it's going to be minimal things, and it's not going to create too big of an advantage for either side. So a lot of it is just, it's communication, it's being in tune with one another, and it's legitimately just being a team. Sometimes it's just that simple to help you win games, is you have to play together on both ends of the court.
So on this, and again, to your point, you asked, like, okay, how often will they play Kalel? You see the late help from Kyle Anderson here. They're probably going to, out of the Hawks closing lineup, they probably are going to help off of Dyson. So the Hawks should be prepared for that. But Kalel isn't on the floor. And you see the gap defense from Miami. They're going to commit and try and force Trey to pass out. I think here, like, Wiggins probably doesn't have to sink in as much, right? Like, not saying that Tyler's in great defensive position, but you still have Bam to deter him at the rim. I think that's a little bit too much respect for Trey as like an at-the-rim scorer, and they end up getting burned there from that 3 from Terrence Mann. It's unlikely, I think, they close with Mann. I think we like our 5th or even our 4th or 5th closes are definitely like whoever's having the best offensive game. I think Trey ends up shooting this one, ends up missing. But this is like the difference in what he's been doing, like, versus like previous years. Like, he's moving off the ball, and even if he ends up missing this, like, there's a bit of confusion just because he was able to run and get to the ball. So, like, if these shots end up falling and he has a better shooting night, then I think that could be a factor. But that's the other point here. Like, this ends up being an immediate bucket. Or I think, I'm pretty sure, because after he shoots that 3, like, you're gonna watch what Miami's gonna do, right? So Wiggs contests it and then he gets out, and it's a lead pass immediately from Kyle Anderson. And I'm pretty sure this ends up being 2 points, right? Like, you could just see, if you pause it here, you can see the freeze frame. So they have to be able to get back if he's going to take those shots. That's going to be really important. The late game offense, a lot of times they do use Dyson to screen because Dyson's a really good decision maker. And he's really good at knowing when to actually make contact versus when to slip. So here, Wiggins is trying to get through, but Tyler just is not. I don't know what's going through his head here, but he's doing nothing. Like, he's actually doing like he's not even looking at Trey. Ends up getting in Wiggins' way, and that's just too much of a runway.
I think we foul him here, or he? Yeah, sorry, no, he just gets an easy floater.
Yeah. So they're gonna try.
Yeah, Tyler Herro is the guy you definitely want to target in every action possible.
Mm-hmm.
You want to involve him in as many of these, whether he's the one getting screened or you're hunting, or whether he's the guy on the side of the floor that you're hunting as a low man. He's never, like, he'll make the right decision 1 out of every 6 times, and offensively you'll take that. So, because he's just not the most athletic either. Like, he doesn't really. He's Tyler Herro. This is the nicest thing I can say about his defense.
And then the other thing is, like, if Dyson isn't going to be screening directly for Trey, he needs to be aggressive, get into a spot where he can receive the ball. So here he puts Alec Burks in a position of conflict, right? So by not staying statically there, he makes it harder for Anderson to actually, like, track this pass. no one's really able to get to Dyson here, and he's just gonna make like this is 4-on-3 basketball, and Bam has to respect Onyeka as a lob threat, and they just gonna have to concede the float. And like again, like this is like with 10 points left, but this is the type of stuff that he has to be comfortable with, because that's I fully expect you guys to put 2 on Trey. I fully expect you guys to heavy gap defense to help off Dyson. And so I know that you said you feel like, and I agree with you, saying that it's gonna be like in your opinion, you think one of the biggest X factors is gonna be exactly what you're saying, his play.
Yep.
From your perspective, like who do you think would have to have a good game, or who would swing it the most in y'all's favor from the Heat's perspective?
From the Heat's perspective, who would swing the game the most in our favor? Defensively, it would be Khalil Ware. How playable is he? How much of a break can he give Bam, and can we win the non-Bam minutes? Offensively, Davion Mitchell. He has been legitimately a godsend. I've loved every single minute he's been on the floor for this team. It's felt like didn't miss a shot yesterday. 15 points, 9 assists. Sensational defensively. How much can he control pace? Because, like you said, as much as you guys are trying to get out and run, we're trying to not do that. We want to walk the ball up the floor. But if there's one guy who, when he decides to get out and run, if there's one guy who just has the correct notion of when to get out and run, it's been Davion. So he's almost been solely like our fast breaks are either steal sixes, obviously we get a steal and it's, nobody's back. Or if it's anything off a rebound or guys are back, it's Davion that's the one pushing and getting us into these sets. So if he can, obviously he's not going to be fucking Trae Young in terms of controlling pace and stuff, but if he can control on both sides of the floor, because he's going to be the one defending him too. So if he could slow the pace down defensively as well as control the pace offensively to whatever the offense is most beneficial for the team, I think it should bode very well for us. And if that gets out of hand, if he gets into foul trouble, yikes.
Definitely makes sense. And then I was curious too, like Herro has had a lot of success against us. I want to say he's like at 25 points or something like that. He has been turnover prone against us, which that's the Dyson effect. Yeah. So here that he is able to slap it away and get it away from him. And then you see the hustle from Davion though, coming from the opposite side of the corner. And this is where Ricochet has kind of hurt us in these matchups. Like they're going to take advantage of him being a little bit naive and not being as aware. So like I think Dyson gives him problems as like in terms of his disruptiveness, but I also think Tyler has become so much better as a pick and roll player that when the Hawks have situations like these, like it's really tough to contain him, right? So like Dyson is able to deny, force him up the court more, but then Niang's he doesn't play this in a way that is ever able to allow him to win, right? Like he doesn't give Dyson time to recover. He's not able to use the baseline as a defender. He's not able to go stride for stride, and then he's like just chasing him like a dog chasing a bone. You know what I mean? Like it's nothing that he can do there. So what type of coverages do you feel like Tyler? I know at some point you talk about blitzing. So here you see the blitz with Clint Capella. He's gonna keep the ball alive, and then they're able to turn it over. So like, what do you think is like he struggles the most with? Is it blitzes?
To a certain degree, it's depends who else is on the floor. Like when you're blitzing, like typically how many non-shooters are on the floor kind of is a good indicator of when you want to blitz or not. In terms of Miami, like if Kyle's on the floor and Khalil, you want to blitz because neither of them is particularly a high volume shooter. Bam, if Bam's the one that's setting, it also depends who's screening. Like like there's a lot of, it's not sometimes as simple as blitzing or not. Like Tyler doesn't struggle when he gets blitzed by Bam's guy because he can just pass it to Bam, and Bam is a good playmaker for a big, so you want to be very selective with, like, if Ware's the one setting the screen, you want to blitz because his short roll passing, while it has improved, it's been a lot better than that didn't even look like it was at Indiana. That's typically a guy that you want to blitz. If it's Wiggins, that's a guy you want to blitz, not the best decision maker. But some of the other guys you particularly don't want to blitz. In terms of coverage that Tyler struggles with the most, I would 100% say the coverage that he is the best against is drop. He loves drop. I think we are talking about the two best floaters in the association coming from a guard. Nikola doesn't count. Jokic doesn't count. So yeah, Tyler and Trey probably are statistically two of the best. I know last year Tyler was one and Trey was two, literally. So I think the at the level stuff kind of hurts Tyler because it allows the if you are physical with Tyler Herro, that's the coverage that hurts him. The coverage that you are the most physical with Tyler Herro is what's going to hurt him. So I think that's at the level, hedge and recover. Those kind of things will hurt him more than just a straight up drop or mixing it up. The coverage that hurts him the most is whoever, like, if they can stay on his hip the whole game, he's going to be uncomfortable because he is turnover prone. But if as soon as you start going for his pump fakes, I think that's going to be a point of emphasis, staying down on his pump fakes. Tyler, as good as a 3-point shooter as he is, he's been a lot better in terms of like off ball getting, catch and goes, but he never catch and like he is not as prolific of a catch and shoot player as you would think, or as his 3-point percentages would indicate, just because he doesn't shoot them as much. He looks for the pump fake to get to his floater. Like that's still his money spot. So, particularly the game after this one where he had an offensive explosion and people on Heat Twitter were talking crazy because they made it seem like he got 30 points on Dyson Daniels, where in reality it was like 5 or 6, which by the way, insane. But that game in particular, Dyson was doing a lot of jumping and they were just feeding into into Tyler offensively, what makes him good, which is just being deceptive. He's not the fastest player. He's not the strongest player. He beats you with fakes and with these kinds of moves, but if you can contain that and stay down, I think I'm curious as to why you guys haven't thrown more size on him when Dyson isn't in the game. I think somebody like Ricochet perhaps will be somebody you guys should look at throwing at Tyler, just because he struggles with size, more than or with like, I know, I'm pretty sure you've seen Trae Young has given him fits sometimes, like particularly over the years, like he guards him and he just wants to out physical him and he's not strong enough, and then he's shooting these contested pull-up twos. So like if you're physical or if you have length and athleticism, you will give him struggles. So
yeah, I think a lot of like Dyson's best defensive values like as a suppressor. Like he makes guys not even want to shoot the ball. So on the season, Herro has scored 1, 2, 3, 4, the 7th most points against him, but it's 23 points, and he's only attempted 18 shots against him. So that's pretty low for compared to the guys that Dyson has guarded, for 3 games or 4 games. He's also taken only just 5 threes. But I think to your point about size, I don't know if Ricochet can navigate screens well enough to do that. And that's it's a really screening heavy thing when you defend Tyler. And so I'd be curious to see if they would throw Karis LeVert on him. I think Terrence Mann is not the matchup. He could be handsy, and you can see here, like he ends up fouling him on that gather when he's gathering from the free throw line. Like Tyler Herro is not going to, necessarily get all the way to. They also can't afford to do things like this. Like I think Tyler missed a lot of shots in this game that I don't think he would miss in the other previous games.
Agree. Yeah.
So that was also like a concern for me. This was like similar to what the Hawks did to get Trey going downhill, but you still, again, to your point, there's Dyson on the hip, right? He's able to be a little bit physical with him and force him to try and rise up over him, and he's not able to knock it down. I think the pull-up 3-point shooting is probably what I'd be most afraid of with this particular unit. You see the attention that he draws defensively. It's a nice exchange, like Onyeka's out of position. And again, you don't have the size on the backside. I thought he did a really good. I thought he's grown a lot as a passer. Like I think he's been way better than he used to be. Like that was a really good shot from him too. Like I don't remember hitting shots like these with regularity in his previous year. So that's over our 2 biggest players.
Over 2 bigs, yeah. Yeah, I think Tyler's always had as he proceeds to do that, like his touch around the rim has been very, very good. Typically you can tell that just by a player's floater and like the touch there, but he's really good with both hands. I think one of the things, and a very common, something that's just very common on Tyler film is he loves to reject screens. He rejects screens to go left at will. Like It's his favorite like right left crossover reject. And you'll see, I'm pretty sure, like if you run just the film, like he loves to get left to get into his pull up or to get into his floater, whatever it is, but he loves to go left over just about every screen, even if it's a reject. So but his playmaking has improved. But his ball security is still an issue. So again, going left.
He definitely seems comfortable going to his left for sure. Let's see if we can find an example of him rejecting it. Let's see. We see him off ball here. I don't know. You said that he's not as good of a catch and shoot player as you may expect. Here you see like he's
just not as high volume. Yeah. And that's exactly my point. He loves to get to these pump fakes because people, his catch and shoot come from 30 feet out.
Yeah.
But if he's right on the line, he's trying to get to the free throw line, like to this floater.
So here's that pump fake, which gets Dyson in the air just a little bit, and he's able to get to the floater. I don't think he made a catch and shoot 3 in this game, and he took a lot of them. But to your point, like they're deep. He's all the way near the logo. It's a deeper shot. So I think that's something they'll have to pay attention to. Here's a pump fake again off the catch necessarily. So I think like trying to limit limiting the pull up threes, not forcing him to catch and shoot, but like at least from this particular games, and if you look at some other ones too, like I feel like it wasn't his best sort of like outing. Again, like he shot way better against us. I want to say it was this particular game, like when y'all destroyed us. So we see here, like this is the type of stuff they're gonna have to do against the vertical spacing, right? So
this is a great play by Onyeka.
Yeah, and this is a great read. Like he knows from the way that Tyler is looking at this is going up. Like, he's already moving to break this up. That's a huge play to tip that away and also keep it in bounds too. Like that's really underrated. He's gonna have to be big defensively. I think this play he ends up turning the ball out of bounds. So there's the blitz against Kalel. The heavy help to cut him off and leave Bam open in the corner, and he ends up throwing it between his legs.
Bad pass.
But how has Bam's 3-point shooting been?
He's been sensational. Like, I'm gonna be honest. Bam turned the season around. His shot prep has been night and day. Started off the year horribly, but since Jimmy hasn't played, so since January 23rd, he has been shooting over 43% from 3 on like 3.5 attempts.
Okay, definitely something to keep a note. Here's where I think sometimes the Hawks and Trey don't do like that's in a ton of favors. So Trey starts off on Davion Mitchell, but Tyler screens, right? And then he just pops out and Trey's out of position. He doesn't really necessarily communicate it to Dyson. And this is also why like Dyson's defensive field goal percentage isn't elite because he wants to try and impact games as much as he can. So he, is able to get out there and try and contest it. But at that point, it's just too much space for Tyler. I thought his shot was really cooking in this game. Like that's a really nice shot. You got to live with things like that sometimes. I feel here he is working off ball, that curl directly off the pick, and you see again like this is just a lack of size. Like I don't think Niang can do anything with Kalel. If I'm going to be honest, like there's really not much he can do, and it's not going to be great. At least in this, like we see in these clips, like they have Onyeka next to him, but I think you have to severely limit Niang's minutes if he's not, especially against a double big, but also particularly against like you could go zone. But I don't even think he should be on the floor necessarily for these particular minutes. Like I think it was an early stop for him.
So with double bigs, you basically want no Niang.
I would prefer not to, but I think like if you have to give him like 1 or 2 shots, and if it's clear that he probably doesn't have it, then I would say like try and limit him to the minutes where you don't have 2 bigs on the floor because I think it's just too much of an advantage. If his shot isn't going, then it's like
I'd put him on Bam over Kalel, just because Kalel is more of a lob threat, and I think ultimately if you want to or like this play he started on Davion. I mean, if Davion's not hitting, he has been for the Heat. He's shooting like 45% since he came here from 3. But I would just much rather go to Bam, and like if I'm the Hawks, I'd rather Bam ISO mid post and try to score on Niang than give up the lobs to Kalel, just because if you put just from like the Heat standpoint, like right, like if I'm trying to guard my own team, if I was to put Niang on Bam Adebayo and then Okongwu stays on Khalil, that just gives Okongwu, like if the Heat want to space out Khalil, that just gives Okongwu more help inside on Bam,
Right.
because Khalil's not as quick of a shooter than
Mhm.
like than Bam is. So if the Heat want to be like, okay, we're still going to run pick and rolls and Bam's going to go to the corner,
Mhm.
perfect. Like you got Niang guarding a standstill corner shooter. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's going to be one or the other. So
Mhm.
if the Heat do go two bigs and the Hawks want to get away with some Niang minutes, I do think you have to throw him on Bam. I do not think it could be Khalil Ware.
Really, really good point. And I think hopefully that's something that Quinn will explore, because it's clearly not going to work from what we're seeing with him on Khalil. So you can see even in this game. Now this is what just one big on the floor.
Yeah,
I
he's
thought
on
this was
Jaime right here.
yeah.
That doesn't count. He's not playing.
I thought this was an interesting action from y'all, right? So it's basically double drag. It's with the delayed screen from Duncan on the big, and you got Khalil diving, which sucks on Yakin, and then Karras has a tag, and then it's a three from Haywood Highsmith, who was really good in this game. And again, he didn't even play in that first game that we played y'all, or the second game that we played y'all. So I think he has a chance to cause us some problems just by being a big shooter and a versatile defender. Herro was scorching in this game. Like I thought that he was like really, really good. Here you see again that same similar play. Like they're gonna have to scout this pretty well. I don't think they passed off matchups well here at all. But I think I know you said Ime isn't playing, but like if this is Alec Burks instead, Niang probably can't tag as effectively. And what's your comfortability on like Herro making these skip passes, like getting it through like something like that?
He'll get it there.
Mhm.
It's a mixed bag, but like if for example, if that was Burks in the corner, and
Yeah.
if I'm coaching the Hawks, like tag Khalil, force him to make the skip anyways.
Okay.
Like don't give up the lob to Khalil. Khalil is not going to miss a dunk. Tyler
Mhm.
can miss the skip, and Tyler won't miss the lob there either. So like, because Tyler is he's probably our best lob passer on the team. So yeah, force Tyler to make the skip and just try to get out there instead of giving up the dunk.
I thought Dyson was kind of like uncharacteristically jumpy when he played.
This is the game in particular I'm talking about. Like you don't want to give like Tyler. This is what Tyler thrives off of.
Mhm.
He's playing on air, right? If you make Tyler to not play on air, he struggles. He will turn the ball over. He will not be nearly as efficient. He'll go back to his old habits, the pull up long twos, the tough physical 2000s brands of basketball. Like that's not what you want. Like from a Heat fan, that's not what we want. We want him. This is what we want. We want him to be playing free. Nobody's touching him, because if nobody's touching him, his nickname is Boy Wonder. As soon as somebody starts to touch him, I don't even know who he turns into, but it's not pretty. So
okay. Yeah, and this game ended up getting out of hand too, and I think a lot of it was because Herro got loose. And it starts with like the early stuff, right? Like, so the reason Dyson's even out of position to start is because he's not certain that Terrence is going to be able to be in position, right? So he starts going that way just to defend it, and then he has to get back to it, which means he's out of position, which means he feels like he has to jump. And so they will have to be connected, and he'll have to trust that God's going to be in the right position, even if that hasn't been consistent throughout the season. And also, this was earlier in like his playing time with the new guys as well. So hopefully he has a little bit more comfortability, because if he's playing, a little bit jumpy, then it's really tough for the Hawks to do anything against anyone, because he is our best perimeter defender.
Look at that. If you go back to like the previous play,
yeah,
look at the difference in the closeout. Same look he's gotten, but he stays on his feet. Like if you do this is where you will thrive. Like, and sometimes Tyler can get to the rim and has counters to that too. But like you're trying to win within the margins. Like staying on your feet on Tyler catch and shoot threes is what you want to do, because he will not shoot most of them. He is purposely trying to get you off balance to attack your closeout, or to reposition for a three, whether that's going downhill or going with the side steps. That's where he feels comfortable. He loves to take a dribble before his shots. So and you have like you should be scouting this. Like this should be like force him to catch and shoot. Like defensively, if you feel like you're closing out too hard, you probably are. Like realistically, you probably are. Like just let him take the catch and shoot three.
Here he gets all the way to the rim, and I thought Karras was in good position defensively. I don't know if he was expecting more help from Onyeka, but he just kind of opens up. Obviously can't do that.
Trey needs to be off of Jaime in the corner, completely off of. If Jaime plays any minutes, you guys should not guard him. So, especially if he's on the perimeter, like if I think he shot like 28% from three this year. It was horrible.
Good to know. I think Herro's gotten a lot craftier too. So here, to your point, here's a dig from Wiggs, and it's just a rip through, hands up. If he gets the Hawks, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, great point. This is when he was on his exploring, like I guess he was watching Harden film over like the All-Star break, and he was just trying to get to the free throw line as much as he possibly could. And he had like a 3-4 game stretch where he was getting there like 9-10 times a game just off of these rip throughs, because he noticed people were digging. And from watching Trae Young, like the efficiency numbers look a lot different if you get to the line 10 times a game, and you can hit 85-90% of them. Like that completely changes your game as an offensive player.
And here we see it again. So this is actually an inverted pick and roll. I like that y'all mix this in.
We never do this.
Really?
Yeah. I've been dying for Spo to get more into this bag. It almost never happens. Tyler's not a good enough screener. Like all these inverted pick and rolls are never to get Bam the ball. It's always to get the guard the ball. And that's an issue I've just had personally with our schematic. Like, we used to have Jimmy Butler, obviously, but have you seen how many inverted pick and rolls Golden State runs for Jimmy? It's every play. Like, do some of this for Bam. Like, get him downhill. These inverted pick and rolls, unless it's Duncan setting them, Bam's just going to get to the rim. And the only reason it works with Duncan is because the guy legitimately does not leave Duncan Robinson.
I think, and this is one of like Dyson's redeemable defensive characteristics that I also think he needs to work on. It's like he wants to help so badly, right? Does he need to really jump out at Bam here? I don't think so. Like I think Onyeka's in a good enough position, right? And again, it's the same thing where now he's out of position and he jumps at the pump fake, and time. And then you see how much that Mohamed Gay has to step up. He actually does a good job trying to get back, but he doesn't have his hands up and ends up being a lob, and you don't have the size to be able to do anything with Kalel once he gets above the rim. And then you guys ended up like turning up in the third quarter. This is good disruptiveness from Kalel. A nice idea from Zach, but it's a little congested. That pass probably should have went to Dyson, and I think this ends up being a dunk for Bam. Yeah, so that's a nice play from y'all. We won't keep going through this just because I think a lot about this third quarter was at some point Tyler just kept drawing fouls and then you guys started drilling threes. But I want to bring it back to the numbers really quick because I think this is what's going to define it. Pace, who gets to play their style of basketball? Like your style of basketball is slow. This season, Pace, one of the slowest pace teams in the NBA. They average about 96.2 possessions per game or per 100, and the Hawks are at 102.6. So we're the second highest pace. I don't remember exactly what you guys are, but it's pretty low. Y'all do a decent job not turning the ball over. You also do a good job of not fouling teams. And the fact that you play at a slow pace and don't foul teams is problematic for Atlanta because there's already a size disadvantage, right? So if they can't get to the free throw line and they can't get you guys to speed up, it will be problematic. So the Hawks' key to victory, and just they have to impress their style of play, which is we're going to get out and run. We're going to try and generate as many additional shot attempts as possible. We're not going to play half court against their set defense. We're not going to attack Bam in isolation. We're going to try and shrink the paint as much as possible, try and put multiple bodies on the guys around the rim. And, then you just have to try and pray that Niang hits his threes. And with the way that he played against Orlando, if Niang plays that way and Zachary Rizachet plays the way they did, and they make 4 total threes, they will lose this game. They don't simply have enough other ways to generate offense outside of the paint touches and the vertical finishes and the stuff like that. So yes, it will come down to shot making. I think defensively they can try and put size, disruption on Tyler Herro. They can blitz when it's Kalel Ware, like you mentioned. They can help and pinch off of Jaime Jaquez if he touches the floor. But I think if it's Alec Burks or if it's Haywood Highsmith, you're going to have to sometimes choose your poison and, try and see if it's going to be if they're throwing it to the strong side corner versus the weak side corner, figuring out what you want to do there. But I don't know. I think if I had to give like a comfortability level that the Hawks walk out with a win, probably be like 60-65%. I think that this is Trae's moment. Like he does not need to go into this game saying I need to be great for us to win, but he has to play above the standard of even what he did against Orlando. He has to play like what he was doing in that third quarter against Orlando. So I think he knows the gravity of this moment and what it could do for him and the team if they're able to, get past this team that's caused him a lot of problems. But he can't make it individualistic, right? Like he can't say, I'm going to beat this team. More so, I'm going to do what it takes to beat this team. It's sort of like what I'm hoping where his mindset is going to be. So yeah, I think I will go with my Hawks for this one. The home court will matter, I think, especially because the 2 games that we really got, it was no contest against y'all. We're in Miami, so I think that definitely will matter. So yeah, what are your thoughts about how this game will go, and then what's your confidence level for this team?
So I have no idea how this game's gonna go. It's 2 of the most volatile teams in the association. Like I've seen Hawks games where you guys look like you're piecing together something great for the future, and then I've seen the same Orlando Magic game, the 3rd quarter. I was like, man, they've got it, like they're figuring it out.
Yep.
And then the other 3 quarters or 2.5 quarters of that game, it was like this team looks like they don't belong even in the play-in right here.
Yeah.
And it's not to trash on y'all. The Heat are the same way. Like I've seen the same thing night in and night out. We lost 10 games in a row and then came back and won 6 while beating OKC. While beating Golden State and the Celtics. I'm sorry. I saw, it's the nature of the teams that we follow. In terms of from a comfortability standpoint, I think this is the most comfortable. I feel more comfortable against y'all than I did against the Bulls. From the standpoint of, I think we match up better against you guys. However, I just thought we were going to beat Chicago. I don't think Spo loses 4 times to the same team in a season. So, and we were 0-3 against them. So, but even with that being said, I just think this is the first time the Heat have got into somewhat of a comfortable rotation. I talked about that on the previous, on the MHB win, but we know who our 9-man, who the 9-man rotation is going to be. Like we got it set down in stone. He finally, Spo took him forever, but God damn it, he finally fucking got it. And I think that's very crucial in terms of, from the player standpoint, just to know how many minutes they're playing, like how long their leash is going to be, when they're going to come in, who they're going to play with, what's the lineup around them look like, what's their role going to be when that lineup, if there's a change, what their role is going to be there. Like that is super important. And we finally have that figured out. So the rest is truly just up to Spoelstra to scheme up and for the stars to be stars. I do think it hurts you guys that you guys don't have a secondary, somebody you can trust with the ball in their hands besides Trey, where, Miami has Tyler and Bam where they can trust with the ball. And now Davion has been literally our best ball handler since he's been here in terms of just getting others involved. So I do think we have just a little bit more options and more leeway. We have to have more things go wrong, in my opinion, for us to win, to lose the game. But I think we'll win the game, if I'm honest. It sucks that I say that because at the same time, I'd rather have the 11th pick. This fucking team has nowhere to go in the future. So, it's just kind of where I'm standing at. It's also very Miami Heat culture of, I hate saying Heat culture, but it's very Heat culture of us to fucking be the first 10th seed and play in history to make the playoffs. That has, they will plaque that shit up on the wall, I'm telling you. And they will brag about it for years. 3 times in a row, play-in tournament champs. Get the fuck out of here. We've been mid for 3 years and they flex it. But great marketing team, I guess.
I hear that. It makes sense. The Hawks, our pick implications are somewhat similar, right? So it's really dangerous for us if Dallas makes the playoffs. If Dallas makes the playoffs, it's a very high chance that we don't end up retaining the pick from Sacramento. So we don't really we control our own destiny in terms of if we end up making the playoffs, then we have a much higher chance of it conveying, even if Dallas does. Now, some things still need to break our way. Ideally, Dallas loses to Memphis. If Dallas loses to Memphis and we lose, we could still potentially kick the pick. So it would not.
Protections on the pick. I'm sorry.
It's top 12 for Sacramento. So it's Sacramento's pick from the Kevin Herter trade. So I'll bring on the graphic real quick so people can understand the implications of this game.
And just real quick, just to, because again, I didn't even know this. If the pick, let's say the pick doesn't convey and you guys, it lands in the top 12 for Sacramento, what does it convert to then after?
So actually, we would have another chance in 2026, but at least I'm pretty sure. I'll double check those protections right now. The issue is that team is going. If we're talking about teams going nowhere, Sacramento is outside of Phoenix. I don't know who has it worse than them. Yeah, I
But
want to say
they got Zach LaVine, and they gave DeMar DeRozan 3 years. They said we want to be the Bulls of the West.
they did, and they went out just like the Bulls of the West, and they got eliminated in the play-in. It's tough, man. It's tough. Like it's really worrying for us because this is very much so like our future, okay? Because we really need to add some more young talent, especially in the front court. The pick will be top 10 protected in 2026. I am not confident that Sacramento is also going to be in a playing position with the way they've been playing, right? So essentially, the Kings advancing out the play-in is the only way it would like guaranteed we get the pick. But if Dallas gets the 8th seed, Orlando has already made the playoffs. If both of us make the playoffs, then we're guaranteed the 13th pick, which is ideal.
So you
Orlando's the
want to make
right.
the playoffs.
We need to win. If Orlando is the only team that wins, it comes down to a coin flip. Not great.
Not great.
Now, if Dallas doesn't get the 8th seed, and they lose to Memphis, even if we lose, we will get the pick. So it'll be the 13th or the 14th.
You'll be Memphis fans.
Yes. So the Hawks fans need to root for Memphis, but they also need to root for the Hawks to just win, because you don't want to leave it up to Memphis, who has Ja Morant, who's hobbled. You don't control your own destiny. So, yeah, man, I really appreciate you taking the time. This could be it could be a stressful game, you know, for both of us, you know, like whether you're rooting for the draft pick or, you know, rooting for some extra basketball for either team. I think if it comes down to like the margins, like if it's a close game, the Hawks will have better clutch execution offensively. But if it comes down to second chance points, hustle points, offensive rebounds, they're at a severe disadvantage that they're going to have to match the grit that I know you guys are going to bring. So, you know, it's cliche to say whoever wants it more, but for the Hawks, I think they have to want it more because they have such a deficit athletically and, you know, just in general, like defensively. So we'll see how it goes, man. You know, I said it on last time. I'm not wishing y'all any good luck. I still think we'll give the Cavs more. It'd be more of an entertaining series if we win it. So for the good of the game, you know, for the integrity of the league, Adam Silver, please let us advance. Let us keep this pick. Let us keep building on what we're doing in Atlanta. And then that way y'all keep y'all picks too. So it's a win-win. You know what I'm saying? If we end up we end up advancing. So yeah, man.
I'd like for them to win, but if they lose, you know, I'll take hopefully Jeremiah Fears or something like that. You know, if he manages to start smoking weed or something and they catch him with the face, like with the bong mask or something, that'd be great.
Shout out Larry Tunsil, man. But yeah, I definitely appreciate you taking the time and let people know where to find you. All his links will be in the description too.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you for having me. And I will wish you guys good luck tomorrow because I don't give a shit what happens.
Appreciate that, brother. All right.